30 years after buying a $13 ring, a woman realized she'd been tricked. She looked at the appraiser, stunned by what she'd just heard. It didn't seem possible. Maybe he had made a mistake. She had never experienced anything like this before, and she doubted he had either. She didn't know what to think, but what he said next completely turned her world upside down. A woman from London who didn't want her name shared was taking her usual weekend walk through the Middlesex Hospital flea market just outside the city. She passed by rows of old and worn-down stalls. With only a few pounds in her pocket, she wanted to make sure whatever she bought would be worth it. As she was checking out a necklace on one of the tables, something shiny in the corner caught her eye. She turned, and there it was. The ring. It felt like she was meant to find it. She had been looking for something special, something that felt a little fancy. Of course, she knew she couldn't afford anything too expensive, but this ring spoke to her in a way she couldn't explain. It felt personal, like it was more than just an old trinket. She picked it up and looked it over. It definitely didn't seem real, but still, she couldn't put it down. She just felt drawn to it. The ring had a massive setting, and the stone sparkled like it belonged in a fairy tale. She knew right then that she wanted it, not just because it was beautiful, but because it gave her hope. It became a symbol, a reminder that if she worked hard enough, maybe one day she'd be able to afford a real diamond. What she didn't know was that everything was about to take a wild turn. She handed over her last 10 pounds, about $13, and bought the ring. From that day on, she wore it all the time. Years went by, but she still kept it close. Coming from a modest background, she didn't own much, but this one piece made her feel special. Even 3 decades later, it still made her feel like royalty. But then, a regular trip to the grocery store changed everything. It was a lovely afternoon when she stopped by the store on her way home from work. She picked up a few things and got in line to check out. While she waited, she noticed a man looking at her hand. She thought it was a bit odd, but didn't think too much of it. She just kept waiting in line. What she didn't realize was that the man wasn't just being curious. He wasn't planning to let her walk away unnoticed. The man wouldn't stop staring at her ring, and it was starting to make her really uncomfortable. When her turn at the register finally came, she paid quickly and walked out, still feeling the weight of his eyes on her. She picked up her pace, heart starting to race a little. Why was he watching her like that? And why was he still behind her? She moved quickly toward her car, keeping an eye on him without turning her head. She hoped to lose him in the crowd, but he stayed right on her trail. Was he just being weird, or was something seriously wrong? Then he got closer, too close. She could feel him right behind her. She spun around, ready to say something, and what came out of his mouth caught her completely off guard. The man had followed her because something about her ring had caught his attention. Then he asked a question that stopped her in her tracks. His eyes were locked onto her hand, and he could see she was clearly unsettled. He quickly asked if he could take a closer look at her ring. The way he asked and the way he stared made her feel uneasy. She didn't like it one bit. Thinking it might be some sort of scam, she pulled her hand back, brushed him off, and walked away fast. She almost never left home without her ring. It was just part of her routine. It gave her comfort. But one morning, in a rush, she completely forgot. It had become such a habit. Wake up. Put on the ring. But that day was different. She was running late, rushing to get dressed and out the door, and somehow left without it. That ring meant so much to her, she actually got off the bus at the next stop just to go back and get it. "I can't believe I left it," she mumbled to herself, thinking again about that strange man and how uneasy he made her feel. Her heart was beating faster as she climbed the stairs to her apartment. She went straight to her bedroom and checked the usual spot. But it wasn't there. That tight feeling in her chest came back. Her eyes went wide as she tore through her bedroom, tossing pillows and pulling out drawers. She searched every corner, her breaths getting quicker. Still nothing. Then something clicked. She hurried into the bathroom, and there it was. The ring sitting right next to the sink, catching the light just like always. She had left it there after brushing her teeth, planning to put it on before leaving, but forgot. She was struggling to keep up with her bills, and that wasn't a secret. Still, all she could think about was the strange man and the way he seemed fixated on her ring. He had acted like it might actually be worth something. Who did it originally belong to, she wondered. The whole encounter rattled her just enough to finally bring the ring to Sotheby's in London. Maybe they could give her some answers and ease the growing feeling in her chest. Part of her even hoped it had once belonged to someone important. The ring was clearly old. The silver band was dull and tarnished, and there was a lot of dirt built up in the details. But was it hiding something more? A few nerve-wracking days passed before she would finally learn the truth. The weight was getting to her, and suddenly she had a sinking feeling. Sotheby's had told her they'd need to keep the ring for a few days to run tests on the stone. Her stomach dropped as she left it in their hands. Then came the news. Sotheby's jewelry experts in London confirmed the stone was real. Her ring turned out to be a 26-carat cushion-cut white diamond from the 1800s. She was speechless. How could this be true? She'd worn it every day for 30 years without having a clue. Surely they had to be mistaken, but Sotheby's had everything backed up. Jessica Wyndham, who heads their jewelry department, explained that a diamond like this one likely belonged to royalty back in the 19th century. And because the cut was deeper and not as sparkly as today's diamonds, it could easily go unnoticed. With older cuts like this antique cushion shape, the light doesn't bounce the same way it would with a modern cut, she said. Back then, they cared more about keeping the weight of the stone than making it shine. That older cut had kept the diamond's full beauty hidden for all those years. The experts also explained why it had taken a while to confirm everything. We ran tests with the Gemological Institute of America to make sure it was a diamond, Jessica said, and those results helped determine what it was really worth. Jessica Wyndham then told the woman something that nearly made her knees buckle. If the ring were put up for auction, it could sell for around £350,000, about $450,000. Jessica went on to explain, because of the way it was cut and how dirty it was, it didn't sparkle like you'd expect, so no one really thought it was real. They brought it in wondering if it could be, but had no clue how valuable it truly was. When she first bought it, the Londoner remembered how the ring sparkled right there at the flea market. That shine is what had drawn her in, but maybe, just maybe, it only ever sparkled that way for her. She'd lived her whole life carefully, stretching every paycheck, and what someone else had tossed aside became her most treasured thing. And now, it had completely changed her world. The ring went to auction and sold for an unbelievable £656,750. That's close to $850,000. What started as a tiny purchase ended up turning her whole life around. It didn't just ease her financial worries, it also gave her something even more powerful. A quiet truth she now fully believed. All along, she really had been a princess in her own story. Wondering if your costume jewelry might be hiding a secret too? If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that might just change the way you see the little things.